Hey everybody, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and talk to you about why I love groups. Now, if you're listening to this, you're already in a group, and so you're going, Michael, you're singing to the choir. But I think there's some real specific reasons why we should love groups, and there's some benefits from groups. I love what Andy Stanley said. He said, real life change happens in circles more than it does in rows. And that means when we huddle together, when we come together in a home group, a campus group, a men's group, a women's group, an online group, that it really helps us to be able to get closer to each other. And there's two big buckets of benefits. The first one is what I would call the practical benefits of just being in a group with other people, and then what I would call the spiritual part of being in a group with other people. The first practical thing is that you are known and you know others. You know, a lot of times with larger churches, and ours included, when you come into a large class or a big group, we put on name tags so that people will know who you are. But when you're in a home group or a smaller group, you get to know other people's names. You don't need name tags because you know other people, and other people also get to know you. Which leads me to the second benefit, practical benefit, is that we are able to gain and give advice and support. In our home group each week, we start in the kitchen because we have some snacks and we're getting our coffee and our water and different things. And I will tell you that the conversation is all over the place in there. It's rarely about the topic we're going to be talking about tonight, but at least one of those conversations is about something that's going on where somebody says, boy, I'm having an issue in this area of my life. And somebody else will jump in and say, oh, we went through that, and they'll talk through it. And it gives a chance to provide advice and support. Another practical reason I love a group is because it causes us to think about others more than ourselves. Especially in these last few months of quarantining and isolation and just kind of avoiding people and not wanting to get too close to them. It's been hard to think of anything that's outside of our world. And honestly, our worlds have been pretty small. But when you're in a group, you begin to think about the needs of others. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories or in a group that I've been involved in, a need has come up either from within the group or maybe from outside the group. And the group has said, we can take care of that. And they just fix the problem. They solve the problem. They meet the need. And I love that. When you're doing that, it causes you to think of others and not yourself. But the other thing that I personally love is that you hear other people dealing with problems that are similar to the ones that I'm going through. And it's great because all of a sudden now you're thinking, I'm not alone. And you can get together and you can think about it. What I love is when there's somebody who's already gone through something that I'm going through, and I can learn from their experience, whether what they did was good or maybe the mistakes that they made. And so there's a lot of practical reasons, and there's a lot of spiritual reasons. I think one of the spiritual reasons that I love a small group is that you have the freedom and the safety to be able to ask spiritual questions, to really wrestle with biblical topics in a safe place. You know, when you're sitting in church and the sermon brings up something, you're like, wow, I don't know how to handle that. There's not really an opportunity for you to raise your hand and say, hey, Pastor, can you kind of expound on that? Let me tell you my situation. But in a group, you can. You can ask those questions. You can wrestle with those answers. And with the combined knowledge and experience of the people in the group, both the life knowledge and the biblical knowledge, a lot of times you can get an answer because you're there in a group. I also love groups because they require a deeper commitment. A lot of people will come to our church and they want to be anonymous for a while, and that's okay. But we can't live our life being anonymous. And so whenever you go to a group, you walk into a classroom or into a group, or you walk into somebody's home, it can be intimidating because you really don't know anybody. But the second you're in there and you're part of a group, you feel like you're part of it. It takes a deeper commitment. And I've found when I make a deeper commitment, I'm more open to what God wants to say to me. And the last reason I love groups is because it gives us an opportunity to pray more specifically. You know, I have, probably you do as well, times when people say, hey, will you pray for me about this? And I write it down and I pray for them. But honestly, a lot of times my prayers are what I call blanket prayers, where I'm like, God, just be with the church family. And I throw this blanket of prayer up, and I hope that God causes it to settle down on whoever really needs it at that time. But when I'm in a group, when I'm sitting in our living room and somebody that we know and that we love and we've spent time with says, hey, will you pray for me in this? it's much easier for me to be, yeah, I will pray for that specific thing. And I know that for the next week, I'm going to be praying every day for them. In fact, it just happened this week in our Man Challenge group where 2 guys asked for very specific prayers. And every day this week, all of the guys, and myself included in that group, are going to be praying for those specific prayers. See, I love being in a group. I know that you are here and you're already in a group, but I'm just hoping that your group can be the very best that it can be. So thanks for taking time to listen to me, and I will see you soon.